It's the 1930s in China. Japan has set up a secret research base called Unit 731. Sounds official, right? Professional? Yeah, it was professional torture on an industrial scale. The guy running this nightmare was Shiro Ishii, a microbiologist who decided that testing biological weapons on actual living people was totally cool. Not rats, not monkeys, people. Men, women, kids, didn't matter. If you got captured, you became what they called a log. Not even a person anymore. Just wood. Disposable. So what did they do to these logs? Oh man, where do we even start? They'd inject prisoners with diseases. Plague, cholera, anthrax, you name it. Then they'd slice them open while they were still awake to watch how the infection spread through their organs. No painkillers, just straps and screams. The victims would be fully conscious while doctors poked around inside their bodies like they were checking the engine on a car. But that wasn't enough for these psychos. They did frostbite experiments where they'd force people to stand outside in freezing cold until their arms and legs literally froze solid. Then they'd test different ways to thaw them out. Boiling water? Sure, let's try that. Spoiler, the skin would melt right off the bone. Sometimes they just smash the frozen limbs with hammers to see how frozen human flesh breaks. You know, for science. They tested grenades on people tied to stakes. They forced women to get pregnant just so they could cut them open at different stages to study the baby's development. They injected prisoners with horse blood to see what would happen. They hung people upside down to time how long it took them to die. An estimated 300,000 people died because of Unit 731. 300,000. And here's the part that'll really piss you off. After the war, America gave these scientists immunity in exchange for their research data. They never went to jail. Some even became successful doctors later. Justice? Never heard of her. Now let's talk about America's turn to be evil. Between 1932 and 1972, the U.S. government ran an experiment on black men in Alabama that's so messed up it sounds made up. But it's 100% real. The Public Health Service gathered 600 black men, told them they'd get free health care for something called bad blood. Sounds helpful, right? Except bad blood was code for syphilis, and they weren't treating it at all. They were just watching what happens when you let the disease destroy someone's body. For 40 years. Even when penicillin became the cure for syphilis in 1947, these doctors deliberately didn't give it to the men. They wanted to see the full progression of untreated syphilis. The men thought they were getting help. They trusted the doctors. They showed up to appointments, got their blood drawn, got painful spinal taps without any numbing because the researchers wanted to study how syphilis attacks the brain and spine. The men's bodies fell apart. They went blind. They went insane. Their hearts failed. And it didn't stop with them. Their wives got infected. Their babies were born with syphilis. Entire families destroyed, all while doctors in white coats took notes. By 1972, when someone finally blew the whistle, 28 men had died directly from syphilis. 100 more died from complications, 40 wives got infected, and 19 children were born with the disease. The study only stopped because the public found out and went ballistic. The government apologized decades later and paid settlements, but the damage was permanent. This study is why black communities still don't fully trust doctors and medical research. Can you blame them? The Nazis conducted tons of horrific experiments, but the freezing experiments at Dachau concentration camp were especially brutal. Led by Dr. Zygmunt Rasche, these tests were supposedly to help German pilots shot down over freezing water. Noble goal, terrible methods. They take prisoners, mostly Jews and Russians, and force them to sit in tanks of ice-cold water for hours. The victims would thrash and scream as their body temperature dropped. Their lips turned blue, their skin went pale, they'd lose consciousness as hypothermia kicked in. Many died right there in the tank. Those who survived the freezing got re-warmed in ways that were just as bad. Some were thrown into boiling hot water, which caused excruciating pain and usually killed them anyway. Others had naked women placed next to them to see if body heat could bring them back. This wasn't medicine. This was torture with data sheets. Dr. Rasha wrote everything down. Time until they passed out. Time until they died. Body temperature at every stage. He treated human beings like thermometers with feelings. Some victims were forced to stand naked outside in below freezing temperatures for up to 14 hours. Others were put in pressure chambers where the air was sucked out, simulating high altitude. Their lungs would rupture. Their eyes would literally pop out of their heads. After the war, Rasha was actually killed by the SS before he could stand trial. His research notes survived and were used as evidence at Nuremberg. To this day, doctors debate whether this data should ever be used, even if it could save lives. Most say no. Using it would validate the suffering. Not all evil experiments involve physical torture. Sometimes the cruelty is purely psychological. That's what happened in 1971 when psychologist Philip Zimbardo decided to turn Stanford University's basement into a fake prison. He recruited 24 normal college students and randomly made them either prisoners or guards. It was supposed to last 2 weeks. It lasted 6 days before things got so out of control that it had to be shut down. The guards got uniforms, sunglasses, and wooden sticks. They were told to keep order, but weren't told how. The prisoners were arrested at home by real cops, stripped, given numbers instead of names, and locked up. Within hours, the guards started abusing their power. They made prisoners do push-ups as punishment, denied bathroom breaks, made them sleep naked on concrete, put them in closets for solitary confinement, woke them up in the middle of the night for hours-long roll calls. One prisoner had a complete breakdown after 36 hours. Others developed serious emotional problems. The guards got more sadistic each day, seemingly enjoying the power. And these were all normal students just days before. The worst part? Zimbardo himself got so sucked into his role as warden that he didn't see how unethical everything had become. It took his girlfriend visiting and saying, "What you're doing is terrible," for him to finally stop it. The Stanford prison experiment proved how quickly normal people turn cruel when given power. During the Cold War, the CIA became obsessed with mind control. They wanted truth serums, brainwashing techniques, ways to extract information from spies. So they launched Project MKUltra, and it was exactly as sketchy as it sounds. From 1953 to 1973, the CIA ran hundreds of experiments testing drugs like LSD on people who had no idea they were being drugged. CIA agents would slip LSD into people's drinks at bars and parties, then watch what happened. They set up brothels where prostitutes would drug clients while agents watched through mirrors. They drugged prisoners, mental patients, and even their own employees. Some victims had terrifying hallucinations and psychotic breaks. At least one man, Frank Olson, died after being secretly dosed. He became paranoid and depressed, then fell from a hotel window 9 days later. The CIA said suicide. His family says murder. The experiments weren't just drugs. In one Kentucky prison, inmates were kept on LSD for 77 straight days. Imagine tripping on acid for 77 days without knowing why. In 1973, the CIA destroyed most MKUltra files to cover their tracks. We'll never know the full extent of what they did. They apologized and paid some settlements, but many victims never knew they were experimented on. They just lived with unexplained trauma and mental illness. So there you have it, proof that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't in horror movies. They're in lab coats, taking notes while people suffer. These weren't accidents or mistakes. These were deliberate choices made by people who convinced themselves they were doing something important. The silver lining? We now have ethics boards, informed consent laws, and regulations specifically because of these horrors. Want more dark history that'll make you question everything? Hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more where this came from. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.